I'm Jen Higgins, and this is my story. So when people ask me how Terry and I met, I usually say it was a fluke accident because I think that saying that it's fate sounds a little cheesy. But my little sister in my sorority and his little brother in his fraternity knew each other because they worked together. And when she encouraged me to apply for that same job for that same company, and I got the job, she said, "Hey, travel with me to Virginia and meet this guy so that you'll know somebody else that we're working with." And that's how I met Terry. And when we started getting to know each other, he said that he was probably never going to get married. But 2 years later, in 1996, we actually got married. But when we got engaged, I had told him, you know what, I'm probably not going to have any kids. And he didn't really object either because he was probably shocked that he was even just getting married. The reason why I didn't think that I wanted to have any kids is because I didn't think I would be a really good parent. First of all, I was the youngest of 3 siblings by a lot. There's a really big age gap there. I'd had 0 experience with kids, and I just didn't really think it would be the responsible thing to do, to bring children into a world if I could not, if I couldn't give them the attention that they needed. But in January 2002, we decided to go on a marriage retreat with the church that we were attending at that time. And it was shortly after 9/11. And it felt like a wake-up call. I felt like we needed to go to this marriage retreat because the world was changing, and we were also coming up on our 7-year itch for our marriage. And so part of it is like, let's be responsible and be a little preventative of what might happen because of the 7-year itch. But while we were at that marriage retreat, we had homework to do. There was nice little questions for us to ask each other. And that was when I was shocked that we realized that we really did want a family. And so we did. We got pregnant right away, but unfortunately, we did lose the baby in May of that year. We didn't tell anybody that we were trying, so the only person that knew that we had even gotten pregnant was our doctor. And so we thought we would just chalk it up to it wasn't God's will and shove it under the rug and move on, and it would just be our little secret. But I, deep down, was really disappointed. It was a very lonely time since we were going through it by ourselves on our own. But as the months went on, I kept having this little tug, and I can only guess that it was the Holy Spirit, where my head was telling me, you don't really need to have kids. You have a good life. You have a good job. You have a good husband. You have a nice home, and you have freedom. You can do what you want when you want. You don't need kids to take that away from you. But my heart was saying something was missing, and that there's always would be something missing. And so I told myself that the only way for me to get rid of this fear of being a bad parent was to prove myself wrong and become a parent. So, long story longer, we had Eric the following year, and I remember when someone at work had asked me, "So what do you want, a boy or a girl?" And I said it didn't matter, really. And he was like, "Oh, as long as they're healthy, right?" And it came out of my mouth. I'm not sure that matters either. I had this conviction that if Terry and I could get through the miscarriage, we could get through anything together. It was a time where we had grown really close to each other. We'd really understood each other a lot better. And I was pretty confident that whatever God threw at us, that we would be able to handle. And when Eric was about 2.5 years old, he started showing signs of autism. So I didn't really understand what we were facing. I was very confused. Ryan was about 6 months old, and he was very colicky, so I was also sleep deprived. So I was very overwhelmed. I actually felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was doing it all on my own. We didn't have any family nearby. And the few friends that I had, I lost because I was the bad parent with out of control kids. At least that's what I was telling myself. And for 2 years after that, everywhere we went to get support, we were either put on a waiting list or turned away. But I couldn't quit. I couldn't 86 the plan here. I had to figure something out. And it looked like I was gonna have to figure it out on my own. So I remember getting a red tube of lipstick and writing on the mirror, I don't need anyone's approval except for God's. And I lived by the mantra, Romans 8:28. I had to believe that whenever I messed up, that was a gift from God for the next thing that he was gonna reveal to me that was on my path. And that it was gonna be for our benefit, it was gonna be for our good. And all of a sudden, it was like resources just started coming out of the woodwork. That was the time that I met Dina Cunningham, and she introduced us to Farragut Christian Church. She helped me get the kids into the Mother's Day Out here. And then in the children's ministry, we had Nikki Seeley and Susan Bradford, who made it a priority that Terry and I got 2 hours of respite so that we could worship and not worry about getting paged out of the service to go rescue the kids. And Helen Downey was a volunteer back in the children's ministry, and she always made sure to inform me of their progress instead of always telling me the issues that might have happened that day. And I always super appreciated that. And then finally, Barb Knight, who really encouraged me and empowered me to take them out of public school and homeschool them, even though I didn't think I could do it. She encouraged me to do that so that I could protect them from the overstimulation that was hindering them in the public school system. And there's a lot more people too that I'm not mentioning by name, but all together, we did it. And when I look back, I can see that there were no accidents and there were no flukes and none of it was a coincidence. All I can see is God's hand leading me to my family, my capital F family, who accepted us just as we were, made us feel loved, and made us feel like we belonged here. And I realized that it was never about whether or not I was a good parent, but whether or not I was a good steward, just like my church family has been to me. It was about seeing God's hand in everything, at every crossroads where I thought that, oh, that was a part of my life that I want to not necessarily reject, but may or may not be a part of the story. It's all part of the story. It's all been part of the story.